Chapter 3. Doctors need to unlearn nutrition. Mark Twain said, "Education is mainly what we have unlearned." Yoda implored, "You must unlearn what you have learned." If the last 50 years of medicine has taught us anything, it's that we physicians have a whole lot to unlearn, except when it comes to nutrition, in which case you can't unlearn what you were never taught in the first place. Modern medicine is a racket. Full disclosure, I was part of that racket through my 40 years of practice. Although when it came to money, I was the lowest academic of the lowest pediatric of the low endocrinologist. I learned nutrition in college and then unlearned it in a medical school curriculum influenced by Big Pharma. See Chapter 6. I had to relearn everything I know about nutrition and NCDs on my own, through my own research and experience, even though I had a whole lot of people telling me that I was shooting myself in the foot. In one ignominious episode in 2009, I was even thrown out of the UCSF Pediatric Diabetes Clinic, which focused on kids with type 1 diabetes. And this ouster was led by, of all people, the clinic dietitian. At that point, I'd been an endocrinologist for 26 years, 14 of them spent specifically on insulin and its role in obesity and chronic disease, as the director of the Weight Assessment for Teen and Child Health Watch Clinic, a separate entity from the diabetes clinic. We saw those kids with type 2 diabetes resulting from insulin resistance and metabolic syndrome. And as we know, there are no patients more at risk for chronic disease than those with type 2 diabetes due to insulin resistance. What about type 1 diabetes due to insulin deficiency? They get diabetic complications in part due to their over-insulinization over time. Both forms of diabetes, type 1 and type 2, are extreme carbohydrate intolerance. So I thought, what if we tried to reduce the insulin requirements of type 1 diabetic kids by getting the refined carbohydrates and sugar out of their diets? Would their blood glucose swings be easier to control? Even 10 years later, in 2019, this concept was still considered alternative, yet is becoming slowly accepted practice and with lots of data supporting it. But in 2009, cutting back on insulin dosage was heresy. For decades, the American Diabetes Association said that both type 1 and type 2 diabetics could eat all the carbs you want, just take enough insulin to cover it. To their credit, the 2019 ADA guidelines for the first time mentioned carbohydrate restriction. In my opinion, this was among the most dangerous medical guidance ever given. Despite my working in the UCSF Pediatric Diabetes Clinic for 8 years, the clinic's dietitian towed that party line against me, telling kids and their parents to eat as many carbs as they wanted, but to inject enough insulin to counteract the effects. She admonished me with, "Well, I wrote a book." Her flippancy prompted me to deliver a lecture for the University of California Mini Medical School for the public entitled "Sugar, the Bitter Truth," which has now received 12 million views and counting. And then I wrote a book, Fat Chance, as my rebuttal. The fact is, increased refined carbs in kids and adults with both type 1 and type 2 diabetes can have serious long-term health effects.